everyone. Welcome to the Project Censored Show on Pacifica Radio. I'm your host, Mickey Huff. Today on the program, we're going to be focusing on the case of Julian Assange. We're going to be featuring the author of a new book coming out, Guilty of Journalism, The Political Case Against Julian Assange. We'll have Kevin Gostola back on the program later. But first, I have an extraordinary treat for all of you. I have the great honor of having on the program today Gabriel Shipton and John Shipton. This is the brother and father of Julian Assange, and they are the force behind and protagonist of a new documentary film, Bullfrog Films. It's called Ithaka, and that's Ithaka, a father, a family, a fight for justice. In this first segment, we're going to have a conversation with Gabriel and John about the film and about their quest to seek justice for and freedom for Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. The film is directed by Ben Lawrence. It has gotten some critical acclaim already, and Ithaka is a filming of the campaign to free Julian Assange, and it takes on intimate dimensions in this portrait of a father's fight to save his son. Ithaka was filmed over 2 years across the UK, Europe, and the US. The documentary follows 76-year-old retired builder John Shipton's tireless campaign to save his son, Julian Assange. A reminder to our listeners, which they likely don't need, but for those new, the world's most famous political prisoner, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, has become an emblem of an international arm wrestle over freedom of journalism, government corruption, unpunished war crimes. And Julian now faces a 175-year sentence if extradited to the United States. His family members are confronting the prospect of losing Julian forever to the abyss of the U.S. justice system, or as I would call it, the injustice system. Ithaka provides a timely reminder of the global issues at stake in the case, as well as an insight into the personal toll inflicted by the arduous, often lonely task of fighting for a cause bigger than oneself. Gabriel Shipton pardon?
Hello, hi Mickey.
Gabriel, sorry. Gabriel, welcome to the program. Gabriel, you're the producer of the program. Your work has been recognized and celebrated at international film festivals from Toronto, Melbourne, Hamburg, Hawaii, Sheffield, Abu Dhabi, Chelsea. Your films have been nominated for awards. You produced Ithaka, which is, again, a powerful documentary about your family's fight to free Julian Assange. This film is nominated for the Walkley Award, Australia's premier journalism prize, as well as an AACTA award nomination. Ithaka opened the Berlin Human Rights Film Festival, where it won the Audience Award, and its director, Ben Lawrence, was awarded Best Direction at the Doc Edge Film Festival. So, Gabriel, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mickey. Thank you for the introduction.
It's my pleasure and honor, and I would also like to formally introduce Mr. John Shipton, Julian's father, and of course, the protagonist of this film. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mickey. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And again, the pleasure is mine. You have a lot to say. And of course, Julian's wife, Stella Morris, is in the film. Let's get a little bit to the film. Gabriel, Ithaka, how did this come about? And tell us a little bit about the process of putting this together. It's a complicated and long story, and you've packed it into a really informative and powerful, emotional and factual documentary. It's really incredible, and folks in the Bay Area and around the country are now going to have a chance to see it. Gabriel.
Yeah, so Mickey, I guess it all started back in 2019 in around August. That was just a few months after Julian had been taken from his refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy, where he spent 7 years. He was snatched by the UK police and taken to maximum security prison just outside of London called Belmarsh. And it was at that time Julian was being kept in solitary confinement in a section of the prison called the Health Wing, which the prisoners call the Hell Wing. And that was a part of the prison for the most suicidal, terminally ill prisoners, in a very, very harsh and like maximum security prison, it's the worst place there, and that's where Julian was being kept when he first was taken to the Belmarsh prison. And it was at that time that I went to see him with John and journalist John Pilger, and that visit that was my first visit to the prison, and I left that day thinking that I might not see Julian again. That was the feeling I had when I left that day. So it was sort of that feeling really propelled me to take more action into how we could make a project or make a film that would help the cause and sort of address some of the negative smear campaigns and the demonization and the dehumanization that really gave way to allow these governments and organizations and institutions to carry out this torturous persecution on Julian. So, I'm a film producer. I produced drama film, scripted drama, so with actors and this, and sets and things like that. So really traditional storytelling background, and I wanted to bring some of that into this film and really tell an emotional story and engage an audience in a new way, engage them emotionally with John's story, with Stella's story, and their journey to free their son and husband, and really engage the audience in a different way. Open their hearts to what's going on, and then open their minds, as well as addressing this demonization and dehumanization of Julian, and really learn about Julian in a new way, learn about Julian through the people who love him, and learn about him as a son, a father, and he is just a human being that this is happening to, and helping people understand that, I think, helps them see the injustice that is being perpetrated in Julian's case.
Gabriel, it is such a powerful film about humanity and injustice and family, and so many different things are sort of woven through the story that's being told, and expertly so by yourself and by John and Stella and some of the other folks in it. I had a question that I know a few folks have already asked me about, and that was the title of the film, Ithaka, Ithaka. Could you, Gabriel, maybe take a moment and unpack that for us, as far as that being the title of the film?
Yes, well, there's a poem written by a Greek-Egyptian poet called Cavaphy. I think it was from the last century, and it's based from the Odyssey or the Iliad, and it tells, it tries to tell, I guess, it gets to the feeling behind that story, and that it's really about the journey, it's about what we learn on this journey, the friends we make, and those are the things that make us rich. And I think, when you're fighting in a cause that, in any cause that is bigger than you, the objective or the goal seems so far away and might not seem achievable, but you really have to keep going, and it's not necessarily about getting there, but it's about what you learn about yourself, others, and the friends you make, and the experience that you have along the way. And really, I think it talks really a lot about not being afraid, which is also a very key part to the campaign to free Julian. because those fears that you bring them along inside you, I think the poem says. So yeah, it's about all that, and it's really this, allegory for any type of activism, really, for people who are fighting for a cause bigger than themselves. But when we were on the road in the US, in January 2021, John and I traveled there with the promise of a potential meeting with the Biden administration. There was a new administration coming in, and there was a lot of, people thought there might be a change. There could be a change of position here. The Biden administration could potentially turn back this persecution of Julian. And so it was at that time that, we were in the US, and we were John would listen to that poem, and, as a sort of, I guess a way to rebalance yourself when times are tough and when things aren't going your way.
Well, things have been more than tough. And John Shipton, incredible story that you tell through the movie. Yeah, at times looking very difficult to tell. So many parts stand out. But John, tell us about the process of making the film is part of that journey too.
Well, Gabriel Niels, the cameraman, Niels Ladefog, and Gabriel and Ben just started to make a film. I didn't take much notice, except, of course, I was a little bit impatient at the end of the day, and they persist in still questioning, trying to find out if I loved my father or something, those sort of what they imagine to be probing questions, which, at 76, all of that matter of one's relationship to one's parents has been settled 40 years previously. So I wasn't so interested in digging up any of that. However, I did find in traveling, I think we've been in 50 countries now, some of them 6 or 7 times. I did find, this really interesting thing, that in people's hearts generally, there is a revulsion at injustice and a deep hunger for justice and to see justice. And as a consequence of that, wherever we go, we've been warmly welcomed. So, traveling across the States backwards and forwards, 16 events over a couple of weeks. We were welcomed everywhere, the same in Germany and in France and wherever else we've been. It's been the same phenomenon. The circumstances of Julian awaken in people's hearts their yearning to see justice and their revulsion at injustice.
Indeed, John, there were so many profound moments throughout the film, and of course throughout this journey and this struggle for justice. One of the things that you said early on really caught my attention. You were talking about, I think you were talking in the frame of sort of the way the media look at these kinds of issues, a Hollywood way of looking at life, you mentioned. And you said, I would prefer the difficulty of destiny over the ease of narrative.
Yeah, well, everything seems to be these days a narrative which seeks to embrace us and actually misdirects us. So, for example, the latest one is the weather balloons that have invaded the United States, and everybody, and they make up a narrative around the weather balloons, which is farcical and comical, really. But in order, they spring this narrative on us in order to misdirect us and take our eye away from some disaster that they've embarked upon, like war with Russia or such things.
Or blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, or having 3 major railway disasters in communities across the United States. But over here, it's all the Super Bowl and Chinese spy balloons, John. That's the only thing the media seem to be interested in over here.
Yes, well, it's better, I think, to focus on your desired destiny and not the narrative, not the seduction of a narrative. I know the Bible teaches us that, you know, things have a beginning and a middle and an end. And of course, the end is the ultimate destiny that you have, depending upon how you've lived your life. That's a truth. However, modern or contemporary newspapers tend to abandon their responsibility and service power and commerce in constantly directing us away from those real things that rest in the depth of the heart, our destiny, our family, our friends, how we engage with each other, and what we do from day to day to assist ourselves in reaching that destiny. And some of the destinies can be complementary and mutual. So, for example, working to improve the circumstances of one's family. So that destiny is complementary to yourself and family, and mutual. The family group or your community move in symphony to your contribution.
That's John Shipton, the father of Julian Assange, also protagonist of a new documentary film, Ithaka, A Father, a Family, A Fight for Justice. We are also joined by Gabriel Shipton, Julian's brother, who is the producer of the film. In this case, we're clearly talking on one level about justice for Julian Assange as a human being, as someone that does not deserve to be imprisoned and tortured and treated the way he has, and how it has affected Stella Morris and his kids, and you all as his family. And then there is another layer, right, of the relationship to the importance. I know John was talking about the vapid nature of the press and the ability they have to misdirect. And in many cases, what Julian and WikiLeaks did is not necessarily directly, but as a result of bringing forward information that they should be reporting on, and then to see the press both at once take some of those stories and win awards on them, but then turn around and literally turn on Julian and attack him, is profound on a personal level for certain. But it's also a profound assault on the Fourth Estate, an assault on the free press, and essentially in the court of public opinion, political operatives, the CIA, the media, the establishment media, they really accused Julian of being guilty of journalism, something that our own media system has a hard time with reporting the truth, and that's what Julian's work was all about. Gabriel, can you talk a little bit about your film, even as a form of documentary film, as a form of journalism, maybe, and can you connect some of these bigger ideas to the significance of what are you all and what are we fighting for in this case?
Well, I think yeah. So in Ithaca, we really, we set out to sort of make a bit of a, it's about, we had to really make a different film. We knew from the outset that a straight up film, talking about the case, talking about, Julian's persecution in a sort of matter of fact way, that was never going to fly, and that was never going to get past the gatekeepers. So, from the outset, we knew that, and we knew that we had to make a different kind of film. And we really sort of lent into that. We knew that we had to, almost make a film about Julian, but not about Julian, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
To get past these barriers that have been put up over the years, and we encountered a lot of in the early days making the film, this was made totally independently, right? Like we started off, we did not have a distributor, we did not have a broadcaster or any of the funding bodies in Australia on board or anything like that, and really we didn't get any of those on board until they actually saw the film, and so they could say, they could sort of tick the box for themselves and say, oh well, this isn't a homage to Julian Assange, that they and so you really, as a filmmaker and as a a documentary maker, that is something that you really have to work at and come up with a strategy of how to get this through, and how to sort of get this to your audience and get it through the gatekeepers, if you will. And we were successful. It played on which is the Australian national broadcaster, and it was the first time in 10 years that there'd been a piece, a positive piece about Julian. The last piece I think was called Julian Assange, the case of Julian or the trial of Julian Assange, but it should have been called, the trial of Julian Assange's character. And so really to be able to navigate that and to get that through is a particular skill that I think there are some journalists who have it and some who don't. Even though the news organisations are for the most part, have been at best disinterested, at worst complicit. They still have some good journalists who know this technique and can slip things through when the chance arises. But if you go back and look at why WikiLeaks, why Julian founded WikiLeaks, he identified this problem with these media corporations, the gatekeeping of leaks, the centralization of leaks and information through these gatekeepers, through these corporate gatekeepers that would essentially report on what the government told them to do. And WikiLeaks really revolutionized that. They revolutionized leaking by protecting sources, giving sources an opportunity to leak to a platform where they could reliably know that they were digitally, their digital footprint was protected. So attracting sources in that sense, also decentralizing the information, taking the information out of the control of these newspapers and putting it in the hands of the people. So anybody could go and read this information. It was no longer behind these walls and kept in the files of newsrooms or things like that. So I think that revolution has continued on, even though Julian, has been silenced. We see now the explosion of independent media, independent journalists. And a perfect example is the Twitter files.
Yes.
That didn't didn't go to that. That wasn't given to media corporations, because the source knew that they would gatekeep that information and they would not release it. And so you can see the rise now of independent journalists, and with the internet, with platforms like Substack, with podcasts, we no longer, and we know with these distribution models, we no longer need to rely on these media corporations for our information. So I think that really is Julian's and WikiLeaks' legacy, is that explosion of independent journalism.
And an extraordinary one, and one that we certainly celebrate at Project Censored. And over the years, so many of the WikiLeaks stories ended up on our pages. And it was because the corporate media, the gatekeepers, They didn't want to pick these stories up. And if and when they ever did, they had to spin them and control them. And then, of course, they do what they always do, and that's shoot the messenger, right? They attack the messenger. And in the case of Julian Assange, that's exactly what happened. So many terrible negative smear campaigns against him, whether through Sweden or the US, the CIA finally getting caught planning to assassinate, kidnap, so many horrific and illegal things. And now he is trapped in this extradition system in the UK, which I know has been extraordinarily trying with his health and isolation. And he's already being punished. He's already being tortured, and they're getting what they want. The
Yeah, the
establishment is
example's
getting.
been set, right? Like that's exactly right. Like the message has been sent. You know, if you do this, if you expose this information, you have no rights. You have, you know, no right to due process, no right to asylum. You know, we can take away your voice. We can hide you from. I think, yeah, the example's been set for everyone around the world that if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. And I think, interestingly, these corporate media organizations are finally realizing, like, you know, holy shit, you know, like if they can get Julian, then they can get us, and then you know
Indeed.
next thing you know, they're like, you know, Donald Trump's got an Espionage Act investigation. And next thing, President Biden's got an Espionage Act investigation. And so, like, you know, we're sort of looking at it, shooting like, oh shit, this could actually be applied to anybody and everybody. You know, it's not just Julian Assange; it's sitting presidents, ex-presidents.
No.
So, you know, it's a very, very dangerous precedent. I think that's why we're seeing these you know, the corporate media coming together.
Oh yeah, late, certainly
Yeah.
late to the game, but
Yes, yeah,
perhaps
yeah.
welcome voices. John Shipton, we have a few minutes left here, and
Yes.
I wanted you made so many brief but profound statements about media, about journalism, and about what was at stake here. I wanted to hear some of your thoughts too on how significant Julian's case really is for not just journalism, but behind it, how we as people have to check the power of our governments. We and this the only way we can do that is if we have access to the kinds of information that Julian was making available, and by working with the whistleblowers who also were risking their lives to make that information available. John Shipton.
Well, that's the best question I've had in a few months, and how I see it is this: that the original insight of Julian Assange was as follows, that with the burgeoning of the internet, and I think back in 2006, there were about 60 million websites on the internet. With the burgeoning of the internet, if you put up some information, then all of those that had access to the internet could participate in the analysis of that information. And as a consequence, over dinner or with their friends having a beer, or in symposiums and conferences, or at school or at university or at work, expand upon their understandings. And as a consequence of that, increase the general understanding of government policy and the overall intelligence of the community. It's, I think, brilliant and wonderful, and it has happened. So I've been following Project Censored, you know, since the revelations of Chelsea Manning were published by Julian Assange. And subsequent to that, my understanding of how governments operate and how there has been a progressive integration of legacy media into government. And so there's really no distinction whatsoever between legacy media and government policy. And the distinct thing that we understand is that the integration of those two voices, government policy and legacy media, have meant the dumbing down of their capacities. That's
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
And we have an expression in Australia, dumb as dog shit. Now, who on earth would put up a series of revelations and having a sitting president of one of the most powerful countries in the world rabbit on about weather balloons floating over the United States? There's 75,000 weather balloons released by the United States every year. The sky is crowded with them. It's worse than the Martian invasion. And they have done that to themselves because they are completely integrated with the legacy media and a willingness to deceive us. Now, this is important. This is the last point I make, that they have what's a good word? They've come across this secret that if you say something from a point of view of authority, the New York Times, the president's spokesperson, that's completely stupid. Mohammed Atta's passport found in the wreckage of the 9/11 buildings, absolutely inarguable statement with no intelligence in it whatsoever, but said from a position of authority, the people will go around saying, well, it must be right. They wouldn't say something so bloody stupid, so ridiculous, if it wasn't true. And the other quality of it is that it's inarguable. You cannot reason against that level of stupidity. All of Project Census and all of the other ferment in all what we call alternative media, but it's not really alternative. It's the only actual source of information that you can rely on and speak to your friends about, and that you can reason through. You can pull it to pieces and say, aha, I understand now how government policy was formulated within a small section, quoting Cy Hirsch, small section of government to go about a criminal act of terrorism. I understand that now. And I understand from that how ineffective my Congress and my congressmen have become. Wonderful stuff.
It's all interconnected, and in that regard, in the worst of ways, John Shipton. And what you just described, the legacy media collaboration with governments, with government agencies, intelligence, the whole national security complex. It's now the military entertainment complex. It permeates all of Hollywood, everything. This kind of messaging at Project Censored, we've because we often hear critics say, well, these legacy outlets, these media outlets, they don't censor, they use news judgment, and they're private, by the way, so they get to decide what's on your airwaves. And at Project Censored, for a long time now, we've described the phenomenon that you just eloquently laid out. We call it censorship by proxy, moving beyond prior restraint notions. And the idea, just because it doesn't look like the government is, putting the blinders on everyone, we know well who these people are and how they're completely networked. And, you don't necessarily need a memo from places like Washington to the New York Times about how to do something. These people already know. They breathe the same sort of air of the established order. They go to the same colleges, they go to the same programs, they go to the same think tanks. It's this group of people, right? Really. And I don't mean to make it sound like some nefarious cabal or conspiracy. We don't need to go fictitious or to dark corners of literature per se. This is all happening in front of us. And Julian Assange has committed the great crime of journalism and publishing by showing people exactly how this goes on, how long it goes on, the extent and depth to which it goes on, in a way that is undeniable for anyone that has any relationship with reality. And I think go ahead, John.
No, my last, comment would be this, that the United States has a holy grail, which we all must seek to constantly move towards, and that's the First Amendment.
Well, it's a lot of work, and we've all got to pitch in to support it. And I think one fantastic way that we can all support it even more is by coming out and seeing you all on some of your U.S. tour to see this really brilliant documentary, Ithaca, A Father, a Family, A Fight for Justice. Gabriel Shipton, in the last couple minutes we have here, last words from you on these matters, and I would be appreciative if you would tell folks where they might get the opportunity to actually come and see not only the film, but the both of you. Gabriel.
Yeah, well, I know we criticize the US government a lot. Whenever we travel to the US, we're always, welcomed with open arms and amazed at the hospitality of the people there, and some of the friendliest audiences and supporters on our travels. We always meet them when we're in the USA. So, we criticize the government, but the people, the people are strong and always happy to come to visit them again.
Gabriel, I live here, and that's what I do for a living. So I appreciate your coming in and helping us with that criticism, because it's extraordinary and much needed. See, we feel very lonely here sometimes.
Yes. Well, so we are going to be, I think we'll be in 25 cities across the US during March and April. You can find out all the details, all the events at the film website, which is ithacamovie.com. We will be in San Francisco on March the 2nd at the Roxy Theatre at 7 p.m. and also on March the 3rd at the Smith Raphael Film Center at 7 p.m. So if you're in San Francisco, you can come and see us at those two venues, or check the website. I hope we're coming to your town or city. We'll have over 40 events all around the US. So yeah, I hope we can get to see everyone, and everyone can come down and speak to us. Another thing I'd ask people to do is, always when we're traveling around, we're asking people to contact their representatives and let them know how they feel about this case, how it affects their democratic rights, and ask them what their representatives' position, why they disagree with the New York Times, or why they disagree with the ACLU. I think it's a pretty hard position. Congress is sort of a bit late to the party on this one, or not a bit late, but very late, particularly the Progressive Caucus. I think we're hearing some murmurs that that there is some movement in the Progressive Caucus. So now is the time to give your representatives in the Progressive Caucus a phone call and to encourage them to act on this.
Well, Gabriel, I know some of the members of the Assange defense chapters in the U.S. are working to get information and copies of certain books that are coming out or have already been written to members of Congress. And I'm happy to say that I was just contacted the other day by someone in the LA branch, and we're going to try to get copies of Kevin Gostola's book, Guilty of Journalism, sent to members of Congress, to key members of the media. And we're going to do everything we can to raise more awareness around this, and again, connect the dots from Julian Assange, the person, and your family and his family, to the great sacrifices he's made, and to the significance and the importance of free flow of information in purportedly free societies, and in great support of a truly free press. Gabriel Shipton, John Shipton, it has been my pleasure and an honor to host you today on the Project Censored Show, Ithaka.movie. You can learn more. February 28th in Los Angeles, March 1st, Los Angeles, March 2nd, San Francisco, Bay Area, both at the Roxy. Also Smith Raphael Film Center, March 3rd in San Rafael, California. You'll also be in Santa Fe, Houston, New Orleans, Washington, D.C., College Park, Maryland, Huntington, New York, Bronxville, New York, Toronto, Canada, Dennis, Massachusetts, and many, many more places. There's a long list at the website. I wanted to at least read some more of those out to our audience, because our program airs across the country. It'd be in Tacoma, Washington, Madison, Wisconsin, Syracuse, New York, Woodstock, New York. A lot of great places, a lot of great folks there. And I hope everybody comes out to see you all and to see this very important and powerful film, Ithaka. John and Gabriel, thank you so much for joining me today.